Good
Morning.
morning.
You guys.
Yes.
Good?
Hi.
Anya, are you there?
She talking to you? My name is not Anya.
Hi, Ahmad.
Exactly. Hi, Ahmad. How you Anya?
Yeah.
No, she don't. I'm the future replay. Hey, let's say
Stay on top of it and get everything that the lawyer told me to do. And I came out of the secret side of it because I did work for it.
All right, I'm going to give everybody just another couple minutes who wants to join us. Give them a couple minutes to get on. Today's assignment is pretty quick. Morning, Miss Furlong.
Morning.
How are you?
I'm a bit sleepy. The weather is making me feel a little bit
Yeah.
like I want to watch movies all day.
Yep. Yeah, I was just thinking that. I couldn't agree more. It's been pretty hard to get up out of bed this week, though. So
yeah, I don't know what it is about it.
I don't know. On to week 3 or on to week 4.
Yeah. Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. So hopefully a couple others will join us. Here's what we are doing today. Oh, I posted up here. Oops, I better fix that because I don't want people to be confused. All right. So we're going to watch a video, which is essentially a little bit of a background and somewhat of a reading from letter from Birmingham jail. So it's a letter that Dr. Martin Luther King wrote when he was arrested and in jail, essentially just kind of like speaking his mind about ending segregation and what Alabama specifically needed to do in order to end segregation in their state. And it really inspired, his letter inspired a lot of younger people to get more involved in advocating for their rights and the rights of African Americans. So it's pretty cool. It's not very long. So we're going to watch that. We've got some questions to answer as we watch, and that's pretty much it. So what I'm going to do is pull up the questions. Similarly to when we read, there's like some stopping points. So I want us to preview the questions before we start watching. That way we kind of know what to listen for. So the first question that we're going to listen for, I'll stop it at about 30 seconds. Why did Martin Luther King begin peaceful demonstrations in Birmingham, Alabama? So obviously the opening of that video is going to answer that for us. I also have the transcript. So if you guys want to follow along here while we listen, you can. I personally, it's helpful for me to be able to read while I listen. So I'm probably going to try to have, I don't know, let's see if I can have both of them side by side pulled up. Let's do that. Because the video is cool and I want you guys to be able to see it, but I also think it's helpful to be able to follow along as we listen. All right, let me get this set up. Any questions before we get started? Surprised Xavier is not here. Oh, shoot.
And I say,
Here we go. That's what we need.
Piercing familiarity. This wait has almost
Sorry.
always meant never.
Hello, computer. Okay, I'm just trying to get it so I can put both of them side by side. Get rid of that. Move you guys down here or something. Okay, so that first question again, I already forgot it. Can you tell I'm kind of a mess this morning? I apologize. Bear with me. Here it is. First question, again, we're listening for why did Martin Luther King Jr. begin peaceful demonstrations, peaceful protests in Birmingham? So as we're listening and watching, I'm going to minimize that. That is the first thing that we are listening for. Here we go. This is the governor of Alabama at the time, so we're in the year of 1963.
To Alabama Governor George Wallace, the continuation of segregation was a solemn promise. To Martin Luther King, it was a scourge he vowed to overcome. In the city of Birmingham, the Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth, whose church and home had been bombed because of his activism, began a campaign to integrate the downtown shopping district. King joined him in March of 1963. They both expected an extreme response from Public Safety Commissioner, segregationist Eugene Bull Connor.
Okay, so let's pause there. So I'm gonna put the transcript up. So the governor opens talking about how the governor is very for segregation, right? However, here we have Martin Luther King. He vowed to overcome that, right? So the city of Alabama, Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth, whose church and home had been bombed because of his activism, meaning that because he spoke out about segregation and wanted to make active change, began this campaign to integrate the downtown shopping district. So let's look at our questions. Why did Martin Luther King begin peaceful demonstrations in Birmingham, Alabama? A, they wanted an extreme response to end segregation. B, the city wanted to expose Bull Connor, the commissioner of public safety in Birmingham, Alabama. C, African American leaders of Birmingham wanted to integrate the downtown. Or D, an activist home and church were bombed and they wanted to draw attention to it. So I'm going to leave the answer choices up here for just a second. I can go back to that transcript in a moment. Anyone have questions? Okay, I'm going to pull up the transcript. So this is where we're looking. Give you about 30 more seconds. All right, everybody good? Okay, so the next question that we're going to be listening for, why did King submit to arrest on Good Friday? So obviously we know he was arrested on Good Friday per that question. We're listening for the reason why he did that.
One of the good fortunes of the civil rights movements were its enemies. Where could you find a better enemy than Bull Connor of Birmingham?
I'm gonna pause it. Somebody's joining us. Oh, a couple people. Now I can't get it to go away. I am so sorry, you guys. There we go. All right. Hi, Mardale. Good morning. We're on question 2, watching a video and answering some questions about it.
King submitted to arrest on April 12th, Good Friday, to draw up maximum press coverage. Attorney General Robert Kennedy had asked King to avoid confrontations with police, wanting to pursue civil rights gains through the courts, not the streets.
So going back to that question, why did King submit, or meaning he maybe like on purpose was arrested on Good Friday? Was it A, to draw maximum press coverage, B, so he could stay in jail longer, C, so that he could show individuals how serious he was, or D, to influence Christian leaders of his message? So I'll leave your answer choices up for a second, then I'll go back to the transcript. You can reread if you need to. Okay, so let me pull up the transcript. So this is the paragraph that we just read that we're referencing for this question right now as well. Give you another 30 seconds or so. Let me know if you need more time. Everybody good? Oh, someone's trying to chat me. Let's see. No exit slip today, Nyla. This is it. But some of you need to go back and do your exit slips from Monday and Wednesday. Nyla, I think I was missing one of yours, so double check that you did it. I can look later. Okay, so let's look at question 3. So as we're listening now for the next minute or so, we're going to be listening for the answer to, how did King's letter from Birmingham jail inspire people? Interesting. So while he was in jail, he was arrested, he wrote this letter. That's what we're learning about now. So how did it inspire people?
Dr. King said, Mr. Attorney General, I can best serve this country and my people by focusing on the evils of segregation. He said it's a corruption of the society. It's a corruption of the soul.
Sitting in his jail cell in Birmingham, King wrote about that corruption. He responded to an open letter that appeared in the Birmingham News that same day. It was titled A Call for Unity and was...
Have any of you ever heard of this letter before, A Call for Unity? No, not sure. So that was the title of the letter that he wrote while sitting in his jail cell. He was arrested for those peaceful demonstrations that were happening that we listened to earlier on.
Signed by 8 white clergymen. Their appeal made reference to outside leadership, calling the protests unwise and untimely. King wrote in the margins of that newspaper, I am in Birmingham because injustice is here. He went on, Birmingham is probably the most thoroughly segregated city in the United States. Its ugly record of brutality is widely known. The sentiments King expressed in the letter had already made an impact on students who had committed themselves to civil rights activism throughout the Deep South.
We were greatly influenced by Martin Luther King Jr. and the philosophy and the discipline of nonviolence. But we didn't like the tempo of change. We wanted to speed it up. It's me, it's me, it's me.
So I'm going to pause it right there. Let's go look back at those questions. How did King's letter from Birmingham jail inspire people? A, it influenced leaders to organize another march. B, it influenced young people, especially students, to march again because they wanted change to come faster. C, it encouraged young people to go out and vote. Or D, it made the news stations and newspapers publish the side of the demonstrators. So I'll leave these answer choices up again, and then I'll go to the transcript. So here is the transcript. He wrote A Call to Unity. Questions? Everybody ready to move on? All right, I'm going to take that as a yes. Hi, Joshua. I was wondering who that was. All right, here we go. Next question. Oh, Jason's joining us. Next question that we're listening for is you're going to write it in. These will probably come once we're finished. How was the civil rights movement nonviolent while the Birmingham government was violent? What two major changes with segregation were made by May 10th, just a week after students began marching again? And then last but not least, using your own words, explain how Martin Luther King was effective in inspiring young people to take action. So if I were listening to this video right now, I would maybe keep an ear out for this particular answer. What two major changes with segregation were made by May 10th, 1963, just because it's super concrete. I can always go back and replay if we need to listen for examples of how the civil rights movement was nonviolent as the Birmingham government responded with violence.
On May 3rd, students re-energized the campaign. Some were in high school, others were even younger. The Birmingham campaign became known as the Children's Crusade.
You might
Alabama Governor.
Shoot, I'm sorry. Might need to revisit your answer for the last question. I think I may have stopped it too early. Let me get Malachi in here. Okay, here we go. Sorry, guys.
Became known as the Children's Crusade.
It was easy for a Black student like myself
Ms. Eichmann.
in the South.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Eichmann.
Yes.
I did the work. Can I leave?
I mean, I guess if you want.
Why? Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Bye, Mardale.
Why? That was only one worksheet, right?
Just that's, yep, this is it. Make sure you got everything done from Monday, Wednesday, which I think you're caught up. So.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Bye. Have a good weekend.
All right.
They can do it in Little Rock. They can do it in Montgomery. If they can stand up, we can stand up too.
Connor and the police represented.
When Bull Connor ordered the police to disperse the protesters with dogs, it was clear this was a real battle, a violent confrontation. Firemen were ordered to use the full force of their hoses on the demonstrators.
So this is a really good point to stop and just quickly talk about this question. What was the government doing that was violent? All of those demonstrators there were being peaceful, and then city officials, police officers, firemen, people came in and started using violence against those peaceful demonstrators. What two specific things did they just mention were happening? Nobody?
The police had beat them, and the firefighters had sprayed water on them.
Yep. Spraying, not just like spraying water, but like full force of their hoses. Like those hoses are meant to put out a fire on an entire home, right? So can you imagine how forceful that is? How terrible that would feel?
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, that's just a no, but like I would try to do it for fun.
Oh, he wasn't talking to me. Yeah, so that was one example. Policemen, what else did the policemen bring in too that they were using to attack the demonstrators? Let me back up. Right here. What else did policemen bring in that they were using to attack demonstrators? Nobody? Y'all asleep? Did y'all just join and then leave? Joshua, are you gonna answer?
Huh?
Devay, raise your hand. Devay, go ahead.
They pulled out the dog.
Yeah, they brought dogs to attack these people. So for this written question right here, there's an example of two examples of how the government was violent. You can put in how the protesters were nonviolent. What were they doing? They were just standing around peacefully marching, right? So I'll give you a second to go ahead and answer that question. That's going to be a sentence in your own words. Let me know if you're confused. Everybody ready? Move on to the next one. All right. So the next thing we're listening for are those two major changes that were made with segregation by May 10th, 1963. We're almost done.
It was a real battle, a violent confrontation. Firemen were ordered to use the full force of their hoses on the demonstrators. The local newspapers supported Bull Connor's response, blaming the chaos on the demonstrators.
I really believe he thought somehow in some way that he would scare us. But he didn't understand the philosophy and the discipline of nonviolence. He didn't understand the spirit of the movement.
Television and newspaper reports captured the brutality in Birmingham and showed it to the whole nation. Outside the region, it was shocking. It was horrifying. It was unacceptable.
It brought the civil rights movement into people's homes, with many American families watching the 6 o'clock news in such a way that it simply just couldn't be ignored.
In just a week, the demonstrators' nonviolent response created a public outcry that Birmingham could not dismiss. On May 10th, symbols of segregation, like separate water fountains, became relics as city leaders signed the Birmingham Truce. In addition, a plan was agreed upon to desegregate lunch counters. This was the kind of meaningful negotiation Martin Luther King had called for in his letter.
So there were two things that they just mentioned. I caught both of them. One of them I think kind of wasn't as obvious, but what was one of the changes that was made regarding segregation on May 10th?
I'm not finna tell you.
Everything was separated.
What's that?
Everything was separated.
Everything before May 10th was separated, but there were two things that they desegregated.
They segregated lunch tables.
Yep, they desegregated the lunch counters. So by law, Black people and white people could sit at whatever lunch counter they wanted. There was one other, I'm going to back up a little bit just because I think the language is a little tricky. Concerning, like here with the water fountains. Did these signs have any meaning anymore?
No.
No. Meaning that part of those Jim Crow laws were beginning to be stripped away. And on a legal level, there were more equal rights. So looking at this question, we discussed the two of them. What two major changes with segregation were made on May 10th, 1963, just a week after students began marching again? I'll give you a minute to fill that in. Anyone have any questions?
No question.
Everybody ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the last one, this is going to be in your own words, explaining how Martin Luther King was effective in inspiring young people to take action. So how was he able to inspire young people to take action? We'll finish the video. That'll be your last question, and that's it.
Became relics as city leaders signed the Birmingham Truce. In addition, a plan was agreed upon to desegregate lunch counters. This was the kind of meaningful negotiation Martin Luther King had called for in his letter. We know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. Frankly, I have yet to engage in a direct action campaign that was well-timed in the view of those who have not suffered unduly from the disease of segregation. For years now, I've heard the word wait. It rings in the ear of every Negro with piercing familiarity. This wait has almost always meant never. We must come to see with one of our distinguished jurists that justice too long delayed is justice denied. These words had inspired citizens young and old to take direct action in the streets of Birmingham. The letter was soon published in newspapers and magazines, and its power was undeniable. King had gone to Birmingham to fight injustice. In the end, his most powerful weapon was the letter he wrote from the confines of a jail cell.
So the last question that you just need to answer on your own. How did Martin Luther King, how was he effective in inspiring young people to take action? Once you have finished that, make sure you click submit. Double check that you did the exit ticket for Monday and Wednesday, and that you finish those questions, because after today it will be a 0 if you didn't do it. I'll stick around for a few more minutes. If you guys are good though, if you don't need me, you can head on out. Thanks for joining. It was quick today.